Welcome back to another Hammond collection video, this time with this here Dimetrodon. So now we're kind of seemingly getting into a lot of world figures. As you can see here on the back of the box, of course, we just had the Carnotaurus before this, which was amazing figure, the highest tier one we've ever had. The Dimetrodon here released alongside Owen Gravy, who I have added to the top of my shelf, which is out of frame, where all my human figures from the Hammond collection sit. It looks incredibly out of place alongside the original cast, which, you know, it's no secret Owen is one of my least favorite characters in the franchise, next to like fucking what's her face, Sonara, Sony Vio, I don't know what the fuck her name was, Santos, that person. Yeah. So, yeah. It seems we got a bunch more world stuff coming up. Blue doesn't seem to be out yet. It looks like this is an April release. So kind of maybe this is like a 4-piece wave spread through 3 separate release windows or something. I don't know. Blue looks interesting because it's the best Raptor sculpt we've had, but it's blue and not, you know, an original trilogy Raptor, which kind of sucks. But this is not a video about blue. This is a video about this Dimetrodon, which exists. So yeah, seen in Dominion in a pretty pointless and toothless scene, ironically, like many of the dinosaur scenes in Dominion. Not all, but a lot. But let's not discuss the film. Let's discuss the figure. So, we'll extract it from its packaging. Oh, I need to cut another binding here. The Dimetrodon's interesting because it's got some history in the franchise, especially in terms of toys. This fella, the Kenner Dimetrodon, which is actually numerically the number 1 figure from the Kenner line, because the Kenner figures all had little numbers on them, which is just a brilliant marketing strategy to make the kids want everything. And then they went ahead and didn't release every number. Both in the original series and Lost World, they gave them kind of like random numbers. But yeah, it's Dimetrodon. Obviously, this is a film color palette because it's a film figure. Not a bad color palette. Okay, let's just throw the box aside because we don't need that. No reason for me to try and close it. Now, I can't say I was really looking forward to a Dimetrodon figure, but, I mean, it's fine. It's a franchise animal. Irrespective of how I feel about the film it's in, I would still like to have every franchise animal eventually in the line and on my shelf. So, yeah, you know, nothing wrong with adding it. This guy's got a lot of little straps holding him in place. It's a little obnoxious. They don't let us have plastic shopping bags anymore where I live, but meanwhile, everything you get from the store is embedded in a giant piece of plastic. Seems a little counterintuitive. Maybe we need to stop doing this. Maybe it could just be in a box. But that is also not the point of this video. All right, so I got a couple more ties here. Yeah, interesting. With the Dimetrodon being like the first, is it the first Dominion one in the entire line? I think it is, right? Like we started with the Baryonyx, so we started with like Fallen Kingdom, but then prior to this we came back to Fallen Kingdom with the Carno, which is very much the Fallen Kingdom design, because you only see Demon Carnos in Dominion. But then we get finally to Dominion figures, and they start with the Dimetrodon. I do believe the Pyroraptor's been announced, so we should be getting a Pyroraptor somewhat soon. At least getting a reveal of it. Yeah. Plastic. Jesus, it's so loud. Okay. Well, there's the Dimetrodon. Let's attach his little tail. Okay, that one weirdly just like doesn't click. It just kind of jams in there. Um, okay, weird. Maybe I put it in wrong. Am I stupid? Doesn't appear to have an orientation. It's just being a weirdo. There it goes. Okay, there it popped. Alright, well, anyway, yes, a tail. Well, we don't have any discussion about balance because this fella is a quadruped. Joint check. He's got basically your hips, your knees, and your ankles. So 3 joints on the back leg. Front leg does not have joints on the feet, which is a really weird decision. Like, why do the front feet have this like permanent posture, but then the back feet are given joints? Like, you would think they'd be consistent in that they would all have something or none of them would. Because what's the point of moving the back feet around if the front feet have only one orientation that works? Very weird. Yeah, it's a strange design decision. I mean, it looks fine. Bendy tail, of course. Color palette is, brown with this red sail, of course. The tail, I mean, it does have some coloring to it, but it's like this, like, just kind of this dark on the top. It's not really like a pattern. It's just like I don't know, like an airbrushed layer or something. Sail is just like rigid plastic, like not like completely rigid. Like there's some flex to it, right? But it's not like soft material. Um, we got a jaw that can open, sort of. Like this barely moves. It doesn't really close properly. Maybe a defect of this particular one. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like there might be a little bit of a different gap on one side of the head versus the other. So maybe a manufacturing defect, a really minor one. Um, because this side looks a little tighter on the joint. But it's hard to say if that's like actually a thing. He's got the little like glass eye or whatever. Like very tiny to the point of like, why bother? And the head moves up and down, but with the break in the sail, moving the head down looks really weird and it barely moves. Again, like a lot of articulation on this that seems kind of poorly thought out or pointless. Um, like why? Yeah, like the knees are like really stiff. Like moving the legs here in the back is really difficult. The front ones are fine. Oh, and they do have like swivel. They're swivel plus hinge. Um, yeah, I don't know. Dimetrodon. It exists. It's not bad or anything. I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Dimetrodon here. It's just eh, just kind of there. It was never a creature that I was like in love with. So, comparison with the Kenner one, obviously they have like very radically different proportions, completely different like size and kind of shape of the head. Honestly, I'm not very familiar with Dimetrodon as an animal, so no comments on accuracy, but I'm pretty sure they're both inaccurate. Um, yeah, the Kenner one's like basically the same length, but kind of bulkier build, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. Well, we could talk accuracy. I'm a little less invested in accuracy for like a Dominion creature, right? I mean, I'm very much a fan of the classic franchise, much more than World, but let's at least take a peek. So, we got the official render, which it's hard to say. like the official renders they do are usually not necessarily accurate to the film. They kind of just are a thing that exists. A thing that exists or exists. What the fuck am I talking about here? So you can't put too much stock in renders for accuracy. But this one does seem to pretty much capture the creature. Like it's the same color palette. It looks like it's the same design. So this render is probably pretty accurate compared to like some of the other ones we saw. Fallen Kingdom had a lot that I think were pretty different than what was in the film. You can see kind of the osteoderms running along the back here. Obviously the same patterning on the sail. 3 stripes with like a darker bit at the bottom. Honestly, this might just be based directly off this render. It's got the exact number of stripes. Kind of like 3 rows of osteoderms here. It looks like this render's got 3 or 4, depending on what part of the body you look at. Osteoderms going down the tail. Presumably these are supposed to be osteoderms, not just like feature scales or something, but who really knows? Eye color, it looks blue in the render. Cannot for the life of me tell what color the eyes are supposed to be on the figure. They look maybe yellow. Really hard to say. We got some other shots. Here's a behind the scenes shot of like the prop. Pretty consistent with the render as far as you can tell, I think. Yeah, I'd say the body here looks kind of green. This one looks a little more brown, but that might just be lighting. Who knows? Head shape is maybe not quite what it should be on the figure. There's kind of like a downturn in the upper jaw, like right where it's biting the hat in the image. It's not really present in the figure here. Is it in the render? Yeah. You can see kind of this swoop on the jaw here, which maybe that's down to, you know, hard to capture in a figure of limited scale. The head also feels short, doesn't it? Right? It's very blunt snouted. And I think the picture here, let's move this over slightly. I think this picture and the render to a lesser degree because of the angle on the render, I think the snout looks like it should be a bit longer. Not like hugely so, but honestly, maybe a bit more like the Kenner in terms of proportions on the snout versus like kind of the placement of the eye. I don't know. Maybe. You got the direct on view from the film again. You could see the legs are really sprawled out there. Which you can't really do on the figure, right? Like the only way you can do it, I guess, is if you turn the feet inward, which is weird, right? It feels like it's not properly articulated to actually capture the posture in the film. Like this dude's really sprawled, which I don't think is actually accurate for Dimetrodons. I think Dimetrodons are not supposed to be sprawled like that, like a croc. I think they're supposed to have a more mammal-like erect posture. But it's not shocking that Dominion would fuck that up. Or the World franchise in general, which has had questionable designs in every film. Not all of them. Some of them designs are really good, and a lot of them are really shit. And it's really weird and inconsistent. Yeah, here you can see this one looks a lot greener again. You can see the limbs sprawled out very vertically to the side, belly very low to the ground. Yeah, just it's a posture you really can't get in the figure. Another thing I'm noticing, like this belly seam stands out quite a lot. But that's probably just because I'm staring at its belly trying to get the legs to like do a thing, kind of. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird too because now he's got his like ass in the air here. I might need to try and like actually get the back legs to be lower too now. I'm gonna try and go for like the sprawled posture. kind of weird. And the joints being as stiff as they are, it doesn't really work very well. I can't get these back knees to like do anything. Actually, I think partially the back knees just have really limited actual articulation in terms of rotation there. I because this one's not actually stiff. It goes straight like that, and then it goes back about like that far, and that's it. So that limits really any kind of posing you can do here on this. Like there's no way to get it low enough to the ground that it actually looks like um, what it's trying to do in the movie. So he's just kind of gonna have his ass up in the air, and that's just kind of gonna be it. Maybe just try and go for like a more realistic Dimetrodon posture, and like just get him more erect. But honestly, the proportions of the limbs don't really allow for that too much either, because the back limbs versus the front, like the front limbs are the same length, if not longer slightly. So it really doesn't feel like the posture can do much either way. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna display them like that. A little more erect than in the film. I think it looks better that way. I think that's more accurate. Again, Dimetrodon's not my dude. I'm not as versed on Dimetrodon science, but yeah. I mean, even the Kenner one's like more erect than Dimetrodon in the film, right? He's still sprawled, but he's not like T-posing. We got one more shot here. Yeah, that's just a shot again from way back in the corner of the cave. I love the idea, like Dimetrodon has a sail, right? Arguments that maybe it's with thermoregulation. So it's a creature that wants to bask in the sun. And then in the movie, they live in a fucking cave. I don't know, man. Don't know. I don't know if thermoregulation in Dimetrodon is still supported by science, but like, regardless, it's a very weird decision, I think, to put the Dimetrodons in the cave in the Ampermine. All right, that's how do I was like every video I go into that's on a figure where I'm like, I don't know if I care that much about this one. Maybe we'll wrap it up in 5 minutes. Somehow it becomes a fucking 20-minute video every goddamn time. Let's rank this guy. It's not a bad figure. I think this is a B tier figure. I think the concave. I think this goes for me right here. I think. I mean, I like the Dimetrodon like color palette well enough. Any concerns I have? Why is this tile so big? Any concerns I have about the design are not the fault of the design necessarily, but it does like weigh into it, right? If I didn't like the Dilophosaurus design, there's no way these would be ranked as high as they are. So I think my lukewarm feeling about the Dimetrodon tilts it towards B. I think the sculpt has some issues in terms of like flexibility and design decisions, some of which come down to the film design, I think, too. It's weird that the front feet don't have ankles / wrists. Yeah, I think it fits there. I think it's not as ugly as like some of the later figures in this tier list. Like the Raptors all have those like feet issues. The Para has like a really short tail and an awkward fat head. There's nothing like egregious about the design here. It's not a terribly interesting creature for me. I might. Do I swap it with the Stego? The baby Stego design has never really worked for me as a creature design. I never really liked Claire. In the Lost World. Then that's the name of the animatronic. I don't know. I think that's a fine spot. I think we'll call it there. Let's wrap this up before it hits 20 minutes. That'd be awkward.